Hey everyone, it's me Alvaro, painter, illustrator, and you are listening to Soul Booking Cool. I want to wish you a wonderful, all of you, wonderful holiday. Sending you all many smiles and hugs and love. And always do one special thing for someone every single day. Even if it's a phone call just to say hello. I send you all so much love and bless you all, okay?
Welcome to Soul Booking Cool. I'm Jewel B. Today's guest, we have a special one. He is a world-renowned painter and illustrator in the fashion and entertainment world. His extensive clientele includes the likes of Giorgio Armani, Calvin Klein, Vogue, L'Oreal, the New York Times, Billboard magazine. He also illustrated Vibe's first illustrated cover of the singer Aaliyah, the one and only Aaliyah. Clients also include David Bowie, Mariah Carey, Jennifer Lopez, all just to name a few. And this Thursday, November 8th, Avado will open up his solo exhibit in Manhattan. Avado, this is amazing. You've had an outstanding career. I understand that you began when you were 18 years old. Is that right?
Yes, I did. As soon as I graduated high school, I immediately started getting published. It was the New York Times. And there was some paper. My very first drawing of some celebrity was actually Betsy Johnson, the designer. It was a full page for the California Apparel News. I was a kid, and it was so exciting. But I started early, yes.
And when did you realize that it was the right time to launch your very own exhibit?
I've been in exhibits before. I had one a couple of years ago in Long Island, but there's a new gallery opening, and I was called in by my friend that's putting it all together, the gallery. His name is Joe Sheridan. Mm-hmm. He actually ran Café con Leche, which was a big club scene moment in the 90s, throughout the whole 90s. Became very, very popular, and he's always had this dream of doing a one-man exhibit with me, opening a gallery with some people, and he always wanted to start me with the first exhibit. And I've always done a lot of political art on top of drawing beautiful women and all the models and celebrities. There were also other subjects that I was always interested in, and and I love pop art. So for years he's been planning this, and it came to life, and I'm very excited about it. And by the way, you're welcome to attend. I'd love for you to be there.
Yes. No, go on. Yeah.
Yes, no. I'm just very excited about this because I'm going to be able to show people that it's not just pretty things that I paint. These are my real paintings. These are not just illustrations that I've done for magazines or models and things. This is more of my serious art, and also parody and pop art,
right,
which is who I truly am. Yes.
That's wonderful. So it will start opening November the 8th, and from
we'll
then
run for a whole month.
Okay, great. Yeah, because definitely I will make sure that I go down there. Definitely.
Great.
I would love to see it.
Love that, but you let me know so that we can hang out and laugh and talk about people when they walk by on the streets. Just mess with people, okay?
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely let you know, hit you up and let you know. So
that would be great.
So actually, one of the things we were just talking about was that you are working on an artwork of Harriet Tubman. And what does this mean to you? Why is this important to you?
Well, with all that's going on in politics today, with the racism, because of politics and whoever is in charge of America now, no names mentioned, a lot of racism has come up from under the ground again. The reality of what happened during the 60s and back in the 40s and late 1800s, everything seems to surface again, and it's like history repeating. And now it's really in our faces because many people, they're showing their bottoms by not caring, because if the person in charge can do it, so can they. And we're getting a lot of this, and there's a lot of battling going on again. And I thought, since I do like creating political art without insulting anyone personally, I'm thinking, what can I do to make a statement? And I thought immediately, well, who's my idol? Who is my main idol? I have many idols throughout the years, but my number one idol of all time is Harriet Tubman. I mean, I think of her and I tear up. I think of the sacrifices and the things that she did for the slaves, and how there was a $50,000 reward on her life on capturing her. And she kept returning late at night in the dark, through the rivers and everything. She had her path set out. She had people help her. She had abolitionists. She had it all set up. And she always got her slaves and brought them to safety. And she did this more than once. She continued to do this for so many years. I don't think that there's another woman that we can call a champion in history like we can call Harriet Tubman. So I decided, okay, we have the Statue of Liberty, which always welcomes immigrants from all over the world. I've read that she was actually created by the French in the 1800s to celebrate the release, the freedom of slavery. But will we ever really know? This is what I've read, and this is what I believe. I figured, okay, who was the original liberator? And I decided to paint Harriet Tubman as the Statue of Liberty with her beautiful brown skin, holding up that torch with pride. But you can see the pain in her face and the pride and the anger, but just standing strong. And then the rest of her will be painted in the green iron. But then her dress at the bottom will turn into tree roots going into the ground. So when you think of roots, you think of, let's say, Alex Haley's TV show back in the 70s, and you think of all that, we know about the history of slavery, the 400 years or so, and I just think that she was the original liberator, so I think she deserves to be this character.
Wow.
And it just makes all the sense of the world, and it's the perfect timing because of what is going on politically in our country, the United States. So that is a painting that I'm going to be very proud to finish, which I'll be finished in the next couple of days.
So, yeah, by the way, how long does it take to complete a painting, and do you have different revisions that you do?
I do. I usually sketch it out briefly with a piece of pencil in maybe a minute. It looks like a croquis, like a fashion croquis or something, just for placement and see if it would work as an idea. But I usually sort of daydream into it. I don't dream about it. I daydream into it, and they pop into my head because of whatever I see that's going on in the news. I always have the news on. And then I become inspired, and I'm really hoping that there will be a bill that's going to be created of Harriet Tubman. I think it's the $20 bill or the $100 bill or something. I'm still waiting for that. That will be something that I'm going to frame. But I looked at the photos that were created of her, and I just kept thinking, and it just hit me, this is what has to be done. But all paintings take me different. One can take me months, one can take me 1 week. It all depends on the detailing, the passion, the subject, the size. So it's always different. And since I've become busier with my work, I've always been prolific, but I've learned to separate everything and then give 3 hours to this and 5 hours to that and a week to that. Because I have clients that I'm working on top of the fact that I'm trying to finish this painting. I had to this morning finish a portrait that I did for the tennis legend Chris Evert. So it's always something else that I'm trying to get done. But it's all I want. I wouldn't want to be alive really if I couldn't do my art. So I'm happy to be one of those people that can actually do, like you, do what you love, work at what you love.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, it's an exhilarating feeling.
Yes, it is, Alvaro.
Are both very lucky.
You know, one of the things that struck me when I was researching you is that and you know, as we addressed, you were 18 years old when you got started, and I was just really struck by how assertive you were even back then as someone so young and how much of a go-getter you were, because if I'm not mistaken, you attended FIT and you knew that your idol and then your mentor, the legendary Antonio Lopez, yes, would be there.
Ever since I was a kid, I would see his works. My mom was a seamstress, and she used to work at an art factory she would sew at a factory, and then she would have another job where she made, which is so weird because it's almost like if it was handed to me, and she would make art books. This was a temporary thing at a young period during the 60s. Then my dad was a painter, a musician, and a film cutter, and a film distributor with a company that was affiliated, I think, with MGM or something. And back in the 60s, there were lots of archives that were saved. So he would always bring something home to put it on a wall with an old camera. You know those noisy cameras from the movie theater? Mm-hmm. And I would see Greta Garbo, you know, on the screen. I was just 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6, and see all these great women, you know, from Lena Horne to Marilyn Monroe and Elizabeth Taylor and Greta Garbo and Jean Harlow, mm-hmm. and Dorothy Dandridge. My dad would show us all these things, and I became inspired by these great women. But as I got older, I started noticing in magazines, fashion magazines that my mom would bring home, this artist that was drawing all these great women. And then I started just thinking, I'd like to be like that, which I didn't want to be like him. I was my own person. Mm-hmm. But as a kid, you look up to someone. On top of that, he as well was Puerto Rican. And I said, oh, how fun. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know, we're 25 years apart. And I said, one day I'm going to work with him. I was a kid. So one day I'm going to work with this man. And so I said it. I never told anyone as a kid. I would just see his work sometimes in the New York Times or layout and this and that, and I knew how brilliant he was. And I said, see, I didn't want to be a fashion illustrator exactly. I just wanted to paint beautiful women, like the Varga girl, like the pinups, and then do pop art. But you have to start somewhere. You have to learn somehow. Yeah. I knew I wasn't going to work with Andy Warhol. In my head, I just didn't think that would be possible. But I knew that I could relate more with Antonio. So I set in my mind as I was going through art and design high school, and I would tell my teachers, I'm going to work with Antonio. And they would sometimes tell me, don't get your hopes up too high. It's good to think about that. But, you know, everybody wants to work with Antonio. I said, no, but I'm going to. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to FIT, I went to take the test for FIT, and I had already won all the awards at Art and Design, countrywide awards for my work. And I put my portfolio down. I said, I have to do something. I have to make a choice to get a scholarship for the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale or to come to FIT. And I told them all, I don't want to try out. Can you just please look at my portfolio? Because I really want to come here because I want to work with Antonio, and I know that next year he comes to do the seminars. They all looked at me like, who do you think you are? But I didn't mean it in an arrogant way. I just really wanted to work with Antonio. And they looked at the book. They said, okay, you're in. They said, we'll send you a letter, give us your information. That next season, I went with my sister and a couple of my young models then, and we sat in the amphitheater, and I sat on the second row. And I said, I know he's going to look at me when he walks up on stage. I said, I know it. I have to get his attention. I got to get his attention. And the moment he was introduced and he walked up on stage, he turned around and he looked straight at me. And I smiled and I waved like I couldn't breathe. There were 2,000 people in the audience. Ooh. And I knew that he was attracted to good-looking, young Hispanic guys. You know, not young like that, but I mean, but I wasn't there. We were just like father and son. Nothing ever went anywhere. It was not like that. Mm-hmm. But I had to get his attention. So that's actually, it was almost like a seduction. And I always say the truth. And he just kept staring at me, and then people were asking questions, and I kept asking him questions, and then he started laughing and said, "You talk a lot," like you can see I'm talking now. And then he asked for 5 people in the audience to take photos with him for the school paper, and I was the first one he chose. And I kept talking. I was so excited that it was Antonio and that it all looked like it was going to come true. And he kept hitting me on my head because I sat on the floor, and he said, "You talk too much." And he said he wrote on my book. He went to give me an autograph, and he says, "I want you to come in and model for me." And my heart stopped. I couldn't breathe, but I said, "Sure." He goes, "But when you come, don't talk too much." So I walked backstage and went with my sister very calmly. And I had his number. He wrote to El Alvaro because he told me, "Oh, I heard about you." So my name was already getting around a little bit.
Right.
So he had told me that he had heard about me. So he wrote to El Alvaro, which means to the Alvaro in Spanish. So when I went to the back, I started jumping up and down, crying, holding my sister. And I was so embarrassed because he was coming out also with Juan and Matthew, his assistant. And they looked at me jumping and crying, and I stopped. I was so embarrassed. So I called him. I went in on that Monday to pose for him, and that's how it started. But I said I was going to, right?
Yes, you did. You did.
And I started posing for him. I started sharpening his pencils, answering his phones, getting on his nerves, and then getting on his nerves more. I used to get on his nerves so much. Sometimes he used to throw me out of the studio.
Oh, wow.
Because I was more like, he was very chic. And I was from the South Bronx, so I was, I was always streetwise and, like a wisecracker, and so I had that street in me, and he was always trying, like he taught me how to tie a tie. He taught me how to sit at a table and speak to people. He became my dad, and I would call him Pop, but I would start stuff, and sometimes he would say, "I don't know what to do with you." Can I tell you one funny story about Andy Warhol?
Of course you can.
Okay. You know Andy Warhol, of course, right?
Yeah.
One day, Pop and I were walking on Madison Avenue because sometimes we would go, it was a Sunday, and I think then, what was it called, Sally's, or I forget, it started with an S. It was an art store that we would go to on 16th Street to pick up, the Saunders watercolor paper that he would get, or something. And then we walked up Madison, and we bumped into Andy. I froze. I was always carrying my little portfolio with me, my sketches with my watercolors, and I had my backpack, and he would always carry a backpack. And we were just talking, and he goes, "Oh, there's Andy," and I froze, because to me, God is coming down the street. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
God was coming down the street. I've met him once before that, because I, got to meet him a few times, but this was a moment, and I said, and I grabbed him, and I said, he goes, "Oh, calm down, whatever." So Andy would always say just one or two words, "Oh, gee, oh, yes, oh, 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 oh." It was like that. That was what you would get out of him. He was carrying a brown paper bag because I knew and everyone knew that he would always on Sundays go to church, go to the Diamond District to buy a diamond or buy a cookie jar, and then he would always buy chocolates, and then he would just bite the inside of the chocolate and throw the rest of the chocolate out. So I was worried that he was going to bite into a chocolate in front of me, and I didn't want to see that. So I'm looking at his brown paper bag, and I'm flipping out, looking at him, and trying to look away while he and Antonio were chatting. And all you hear was like, "Oh, gee," and "oh." He would always answer something with one or two words. It was genius. It was quite genius. Here I am, like 20 years old. And so then suddenly Antonio says, "Oh, Alvaro, show Andy your work." Jewel.
Yeah.
Jewel, wait. So I said, Pop. He goes, "No, show him. Just show him your work. It's okay." And he goes, oh, gee, sure. Oh, I want to see." That's how he talked. I said, "Okay." So I handed him my book. Now, you know that Andy was known for pop. This is very funny. Now, you know that Andy was known for pop art.
Yes.
He created the Campbell's soup, the Coca-Cola bottles. Everything that he thought about, like the Brillo boxes, everything was pop art, right? You know that, right?
I know that he's like legendary when it comes to the pop
Right.
art.
Well,
Yeah.
this is what he did. He did a lot of. In the '60s, he created all these, like the Campbell soup cans, the Marilyn Monroe paintings. Everything was pop art, and it was about products.
Wow.
So everything was a product. So when he's looking through my book, he goes, "Oh, gee, you're fab." And when he said that you're fab to me, F-A-B, my feelings were hurt. And then I said, "Oh, thank you." And then when they finished off and he gave my book back to me, as he walked away, I didn't want to wipe my book, first of all. But as he walked away wobbling the way he did, Antonio looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "No." He said, "What's wrong with you now?" I said, "He called me fab." He says, "What's wrong with that?" I said, "Well, he called me a detergent." I thought he was calling me that I was washed out. You know, Fab, the detergent to wash clothes with. It was called. You're young, but Fab was the 1970s and 80s most popular detergent. So when he called me Fab, I thought he was saying that I was washed out. And I told him that he called me washed out. He called me a detergent because I thought he was talking about looking at me in a pop art sense. He goes, "No, Fab means Fab is short for fabulous. What am I going to do with you?" And I walked away so humiliated that I'm so uneducated. And it was actually really hysterical afterwards, but that's my Warhol story. I thought he was calling me a detergent.
Oh my God, that is wow. Okay, that's an amazing story. You were really young. Yeah, I mean, I guess because people weren't really saying fab back then, like in that way.
Yeah, so I thought he meant, but he was.
Right.
He would say fab a lot. Afterwards, I found out when I would see him on TV saying fab, I would, oh. But at first, I thought he was calling me a detergent and that I was washed out, I wasn't good enough.
Oh my God.
So Antonio looked at me like, I think Antonio called me you spick or something like that, joking around. I was like, oh, God. But that's a very untrue story.
I could also take it to mean that, yeah, definitely fabulous. That's the first thing that popped into my head when you shared this. But also, like, yeah, you know, your artwork is clean. You know, it's clean. It's nice. You know.
But I didn't. I just thought I was detergent. Because Fab was a popular, you know, dishwashing detergent that we all grew up with. And
it makes sense. Yeah.
Up. Oh my God.
I'm glad though. I'm glad that Antonio, you know, was there to yeah, exactly. And
I would have been devastated,
yeah.
like forever, if no one ever explained that to me at the time.
Oh,
so I mean, this was like the god of the artists.
Yeah.
You know? So for me, that moment was either he likes her or he doesn't.
At that moment when you realized that he saw something in you, like somebody like that, and he obviously sees that you have immense like potential and everything. You already have the talent.
That was fabulous.
Okay, so
yeah.
How did your life change after that?
My life didn't change because I was already Antonio's protege.
Right.
So I already felt special that I was, of all the people, I was there. But not to say that Antonio was less than, but I mean, this is Andy Warhol. It might as well have been Picasso, you know, which is my favorite painter of all time. But it's just the superstardom of what Andy Warhol represented to the world and was, and all the stars and the Silver Factory and the films and all of this stuff. It was overwhelming. So it didn't change anything. It just, when he explained it to me, it just made me feel accepted, like I could stay. And so I was pretty lucky as a kid to have had, this is why I always go, I always help people. There are people out there that are always selfish, but anytime I notice like an artist or someone that needs guidance, I always help them, or I try to introduce them to certain people, because I always remember that someone helped me. And I know how it feels like when someone helps you. I know that feeling inside. You feel protected. You feel like, hey, somebody believes in you. And that feeling, you want other people to feel it. And it's very important for me that I'm very chivalrous with women, but I'm always doing something for the children. I'm always doing something. From St. Jude's to this and that. Every other night I go out with my dog for about half an hour, and I go looking for homeless people to give them a couple of bucks or a sandwich or something. So if I find 2 or 3 of them, that's enough for the night, and I come home. I just always want to do, because someone helped me. Does that make sense?
It does. That's so wonderful that you do feel that way, because you're right. Not everyone wants to help out. Why do you think that is, by the way?
I think people are so busy, especially in the big cities. Mm-hmm. They're so busy. They were raised or they come to the big cities to succeed. And it's a hustle and bustle. It's a dog eat dog. And if you don't make it, if there's only room for one, everyone is stepping all over each other. But I think that it's really important. I rather give than receive. I've already received, and I appreciate all those people that have helped me. You know, from Tookie Smith to just everyone that has helped me. It's always in my heart. And Iman, especially Iman and Naomi Campbell. I mean, these are people that have helped my career. Notice they're all black women, right?
Yeah.
Hello, you see what I'm saying? But it's just so important that if you just take a minute, once a day, just to find out if somebody needs something. If you can't give it to them monetarily, help them. Take 20 or 10 minutes of your time to advise them and make them feel that everything is going to be okay. But I think we have to, if everyone gave, I think people would be more relaxed today, and I think there wouldn't be as much battling. But people are just a lot of people are very selfish because they're trying to get through and get what's theirs. And that's all good too, but I think it's more important to share and to help. That's just I'm not the only one like this. I'm especially also an animal advocate. So I'm anti-fur. But when people wear fur, I can't say anything to them. Everyone has their own. I say things when it's a very close friend, but then I've learned that you're going to lose those friends. Everybody has the right to make their own choices and to eventually one day realize that we're going to lose those animals.
Am
I rambling?
No, you're not rambling. You have a lot of really great things to say. No, you have a lot of great things to say. What do you think can be done then for people to want to be more helpful and more generous with their time and just keeping the doors open for like younger and newer generations?
I think, unfortunately, sometimes a person has to hit a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
Something has to happen to them in their lives for them to realize that they're human. Sometimes that's when people wake up, and then they start to look around and go, oh, my God, I've been given a second chance. And then they become more humble. I always said this. Mm-hmm. It's been a very rough, I don't know how many years. One of my all-time idols since I was a kid was Farrah Fawcett. I got to know her. I don't know if you remember her from Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
Farrah Fawcett. And she was another dream. I always wanted to meet her, and I got to know her. We lost Michael Jackson. We lost Whitney Houston. We lost Prince. We lost Farrah. We lost George Michael. We lost people that we sometimes look up at as almost gods. Like nothing can happen to them because they're so super great, super talented. I mean, to lose Whitney Houston, it still doesn't fit in my head.
Mm-hmm.
To lose Michael Jackson, he wasn't even human to us. To many of us, it was almost like he was not human. And I always say to people when they get out of place and that are successful in the industry and they try it a little bit, I always say, remember one thing, sweetheart, that if Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, and Prince can die, so can you. And they go, oh! It hits them.
Right.
If they can go, if people like that can go, that means that you can go like that.
So, Alvaro, I got to know, what are some of the most important lessons you would say that you've learned from Antonio Lopez?
To be kind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to respect people. The most important. To be chivalrous to women. I learned art from him. He taught me on some Saturdays. He would stand behind me and he would hold my hand and there would be a model and he would and I would move my hand the other way because I wanted to do the line my way, and he would hit me in the back of the head. He was always slapping me in the back of the head. And then he would say, listen to me, I'm trying to teach you. And then I would like let it go, and then finally he would take his hand off of my hand, and then I would do the line, and I'd take that one stroke, and he would go, there you go. I learned confidence through him. Because growing up in the South Bronx, I already had to have confidence because I had to fight all the time. And I was not like everyone else. I was different, and I knew I didn't belong with certain people that were mean. So I had to learn to fight, physically fight. But the South Bronx, before the Antonio thing, taught me to be able to fight in the industry, to defend myself and not let people step all over me. So it already gave me a hard shell, like a turtle. Then with Antonio, I learned humility because the man was just elegant and so humble. I learned about humanity because he cared. I already cared, but I was still a kid. You know, like little kids running around in the candy store.
Yeah.
And you have to punish them. He would punish me. He would not let me into the studio for 2 weeks at times because I would say things and do things, and I had to learn. My father left us at 6, 7. You know, I had a stepfather, but the stepfather was, as much as I loved him, he wasn't like my dad. Mm-hmm. So Antonio became my dad, and I learned, like I said, the simplest things as, tying a tie, knowing what to do and what to say and how to treat people. So if I can say that I learned something, it was more than art. It was more than drawing. It was more than any of that. It was actually how to care about people and how to respect people. I haven't been perfect. You know, we're all human. Right. I've had my moments, but I've learned that from him. I learned how to care.
That's beautiful.
And I'll take that anytime over learning art, anytime, because that has applied to my being able to give to others.
What would you say, in addition to having humility, what is the key to success for longevity as a painter?
Key to success and longevity, that could be so many things. I think it's all individual. It all depends on the person. Mm-hmm. Everyone has different levels of success. We're always striving to get more, to do more. For me, the key is just continuing. It's a passion inside, and like I said earlier, I wouldn't really want to live if I couldn't do my art. I love seeing people smile when they see my work, but I like pushing their buttons. So it inspires me to like sort of pluck people if I do something that's like for instance, when you see what I'm doing of Jean-Michel Basquiat, I don't want to say what it is until it's revealed.
Right.
Yeah, but I'll actually send you a photo of it.
Yeah.
It's gonna, you know Basquiat, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Basquiat is another one of I just completely bow to him. I love Basquiat. Basquiat is always in my head. But I did something of him that's slightly tragic because of this is who he was. He is someone, I don't like people that waste their lives. I don't really feel sorry for people that do it to themselves when they have everything. God has given you a chance and you're throwing it out. Some people can't help it because they came that way. They came damaged. But when you have all of that people out there are working so hard to get, and Andy Warhol helped you to get it, and you have it, why ruin yourself? My favorite singer of all time is Billie Holiday. And sometimes I get angry at her. I love her so much. I hear her all the time. I listen to her all the time. And sometimes I get angry at her because she was given this gift of listening to music. She was a musician from the spirit, from her ears, her sound, the pain in her music, but she did the drugs. I don't feel sorry for people that throw it out when it's yours. I feel sad for them, but I don't feel sorry for them. Mm. Those kinds of stories always inspire me. They help me to say, hey, you're never going to go in this direction. You have to learn from everyone. So it all depends. I'm inspired by tragedy and I'm inspired by joy and beauty. I have many different, I can say, personalities within each of my arts. I never want to paint the same. I want it always to be someone else, if that makes any sense.
It does. And do you think painters should be versatile?
The more versatile a painter is, the less chance they have of having that one thing more recognizable. For instance, Keith Haring and Basquiat, you can tell that it's a Keith Haring or Basquiat or Picasso or Van Gogh immediately. You know, I have a certain line that people have said and a certain thing about my work that they go, oh, that's Alvaro. But then I change and I become someone else. That's always just been my personality. I have so many emotions in me. Like I said, the South Bronx was good for my strength, but it was also destructive for me. Mm-hmm. And I had to get out at 18. I had to escape it. And I did, right after I graduated Art and Design High School. At the same time, there was so much beauty and so many incredible people that were so gifted there. So not everybody was horrible, but when there was someone that was bad, there was someone that was bad, you know. And being bullied, which is why I fend for people that are bullied all the time. Being bullied is a horrific epidemic, if that's the right word to use.
It sure is.
It's a horrible epidemic, and many of us have been bullied. I'm sure you probably have been. Many of us have been bullied. Not bullies, bullied.
Yeah, right. We know exactly what you mean. And do you think that there's any truth to the fact that, because some people feel, I've had conversations with people who have felt that, how can somebody be cyberbullied? Because they're like, that person is not around you, they're not in front of you, so why would you? What are your thoughts?
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. It is. They can be. There are people out there that are so frustrated, and they just enjoy trying to hurt someone. For instance, if you post a photo of yourself or art or something political, when you post something political, you find out who are your real friends.
Yeah.
Because if you're not attacking them on the subject, you know, but it's gotten so bad that even friends are losing friends. I've lost a couple of them because of politics. I don't like Trump. I don't like him. You know, I'm sorry. I love Obama. I love Michelle probably even more. But see, this is my thing. I've never thrown them at anyone. You know, I don't like what's going on politically, but many people don't, and then many people do. I'm trying to remember your question exactly why I was going in this direction.
Oh.
I was going to say something.
Yeah, it's fine. Just like, you know, some people think that cyberbullying is, they don't take it seriously.
Well, you know, first of all, his wife to be anti-cyberbullying, she, you know, everything, like, you know, we all become who we are because of our childhood, most of the time. We learn from home. You know, she needs to sweep the living room a little bit more. If she wants to take care of the subject, you've got to do it at home first. And I don't mean to be political because I didn't want to go in that direction, but cyberbullying is awful. Some of these kids get really, really hurt. The teenagers, even the older ones, there's always someone that wants to curse at you or go anti-something, and they turn it into this whole, they even argue about who's better, Madonna or Lady Gaga, and then these people get into these huge fights over the most minute things, and I always jump in and say kindly to them. I said, sweetheart, Madonna ain't thinking about you right now. Lady Gaga's not even thinking about you. She doesn't even see you on the radar, so why are you calling her your mom and your all of this? She doesn't know you. She's not thinking about you right this second. And they shut up. What can they really say?
Right.
And I say it like this, she ain't thinking about you.
Right. You're talking about some of these fans who say, oh, yeah, that's my mom or that's my dad about these celebs, right?
I hate it. People
yeah,
talk like...
I noticed that that's like a trend, and I said, wow, where did it, because I wasn't doing that when I was coming up. I didn't call them mom or, yeah.
No, I mean, you love someone.
Right.
You know? Hey everyone, it's me Alvaro, painter, illustrator, and you are listening to Soul Booking Cool.